Hello everyone, I'm the Negative Magikarp, and today we're going to answer a question that someone posted on one of my last videos. The question was asking about meta and understanding win conditions on certain decks. And instead of going through and talking about the win conditions of every single one of these decks or things like that, OmniPoke has a wonderful video on the deck list and analysis. He doesn't really talk about exact win conditions, but we're going to talk about general strategies, so whenever you watch OmniPoke's video you can kind of understand what the strategies are. For a quick overview, the Pokemon meta has, for the most part, always been the same. We're going to start by looking at base set. Jason Klaczynski's blog is a wonderful resource for that. Jason Klaczynski is a world champion and likes playing the older formats. And so, looking at this in particular, back in an era where the highest Pokemon HP was 120 in the form of this Chansey, getting knockouts fast was pretty much everything. That's why Haymaker was one of the most consistent decks, and it still lives on in the idea that hit hard, hit fast, and just stop your opponent from being able to set up on time. If you can stop your opponent from setting up, that really limits what decks are viable. And so the Haymaker deck, basically, if you're able to hit for 40, jab for 20 for 1 energy, plus 10 for the plus powers, knocks out this opposing Squirtle one shot. You can get one-hit knockouts very quickly with a deck like this, especially when you can attack turn 1 like you could back in the WotC era. So, this, if you were playing in a tournament, half the decks you saw was likely or more was going to be the Haymaker deck. Other decks that are okay, Buzz Zapdos has a resistance to fighting, so it makes it a good matchup against Hitmonchan. Machamp Alakazam is good just because it's able to move damage once it gets online. Rain Dance hits for fairly hard and can accelerate very quickly with the Rain Dance Blastoise. But that is pretty much these three decks right here, the Buzz Zapdos, the Machamp Alakazam, the Rain Dance, these are all kind of built to kind of stop this thing. Now, a couple caveats. There are 102 cards in base set, 7 of those things are energy cards, so you're working on less than 100 cards to build decks out of. And out of those, this one set, only a certain amount of them were viable. And so, in the smallest format ever, base set, this is the main strategy. These are the two main strategies. Either attack hard and knock your opponent out fast before they have a chance to set up, or survive long enough to get set up and then stop your opponent from taking any advantages. Resistance to fighting stops the Hitmonchan. This all makes sense. So, now let's look into the World Championship decks. Or, before we go into that, talk about what meta is. And in tournaments, at League, the meta of the decks are really just to counter each other. What deck can hit fast and hard, and then how do you counter that? And if you're playing, say, Genesect, if they're playing a Dark-type match that can survive the first couple shots, then there's nothing really you can do. They can knock out the Mew VMAX and then knock it out again, take 6 prize cards in 2 turns. And so the whole point of Genesect is to accelerate as fast as possible, to use the Cross Fusion Strike on this Mew VMAX and attack very quickly. Get as many Genesect out as fast as possible so you can use Fusion Strike system and just churn through your deck. Draw as much as possible, and so you can get an Alessa Sparkle and just accelerate energies get 3 energies per turn the turn that you play a Lesser Sparkle, and try to be able to get a UV Max powered up and ready to go. Meloetta, if you can't, Meloetta can do up to 280 damage, which is a good kind of tech card. There's not 4 copies of it, there's only 2, because, you know, UV Max can copy the attack of any Fusion Strike attack, so it can use the Meloetta's Melodious Echo. It can also use Genesec's Technoblast. So, there's just options that this UV Max has. It can turn on very, very quickly, because it can churn through the deck with having 4 Genesecs on the field and 6 Pokemon in play. You can just keep draw up to 6 cards every turn, 4 times a turn. And so if you have things that just discard cards and allow you to choose whatever you want, this deck is very, very fast. And so this deck has been popular for a long time. It's going to be popular, I believe, up until next year, because UV and UV Max don't rotate until 2024. None of these cards rotate in 2024. So, this means how you beat UV Max, you have to be able to power out, survive a massive hit, or knock it out very, very quickly. And with the advent of a lot of Dark-type Pokemon that came out, this became less viable. This was a very, very strong deck for this entire last year, until certain things came out that just stopped it. What was it? The Darkrai is a very good counter. The Miltank is a wonderful counter, because what Miltank does, it stops Vs from attacking. And if you can stop Vs from attacking and the entire deck is Pokemon V, then that slows them down a lot. And now, like I said, Omnipoke has a better video on that, but let's just look at this meta for Worlds really quickly as an overview. What's the point? Now, Arceus V, it gets energies very quickly, so does the V-Star. It allows you to power up your Pokemon incredibly quickly. It's just a very good card. If you can Trinity Node for 200 and then have another thing set up, it doesn't matter if your Arceus gets knocked out. You've set up, and you can then start powering out your opponent. The Flying Pikachu VMAX exists because it prevents all damage by basic Pokemon, and there's a lot of basic Pokemon in the format that just do a lot of damage. And also having a free retreat cost makes it a useful card to swap in. They knock something out, I can switch that in or promote that, and then have a free retreat to be able to give me options for my turn. Alright, now, so the biggest reason, though, this is here is because it's an electric Pokemon. It does weakness to the Palkia, to the origin form Palkia. And that makes it a much better card. Also, the fact that it stops basic Pokemon, the Crabominable, and the Mew, makes things a little bit much easier to deal with, especially when you have this Pikachu VMAX working for you. Hisui Decidueye V is a fighting type Pokemon, there to counter the Arceus. And that's pretty much how this goes. Bibarel's draw engine, Crobat draws, Lumineon gets a supporter card, Pumpkaboo takes out the Path to the Peak. Your own Path to the Peak as well, just in case you play it and you can't use Starbirth or Star of Fortune. I don't think Star of Fortune is nearly as useful as Starbirth, but Pumpkaboo is there to be able to keep your deck going. That's how this deck works. Moving on. Same basic strategy. Get the Arceus to power up the Flying Pikachu. There's a Jolteon in this with Memory Capsule, so it can attack for 180 damage for weakness very, very easily. So Memory Capsule attached to the Jolteon means water Pokemon have no abilities. This turns off the Drizzile and Teleon line This turns off Palkia's ability. It's a really good tech. And actually, yeah. And so, the Galarian Moltres is a very good card because it completely destroys Mew. Mew VMAX deck really can't stand a chance if they can just knock out the Mew VMAX very, very quickly. And Lumineon, Crobat, Pumpkaboo for the same reasons as the other one. Arceus, Flying Pikachu. This is the exact same deck almost as the last one we looked at. Palkia and Teleon. The idea with this: accelerate energies. The Star Portal lets you attach 3 energies from your discard pile to any water Pokemon you want. This gets you Radiant Greninja powered up to hit for 180 across 2 Pokemon. It gets the Crabominable online, which, if you've already hit them for anything, 60 more damage for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. They're not surviving that. Inteleon, for the shady dealings, Drizzle for the shade, just makes your deck very consistent, and quick shooting damage counters for the Crabominable. If you can quick shooting with the Crabominable, then this thing does 120 plus 90, does 210. Not bad. If you can get that with the Galarian Zigzagoon, it does another 60, plus the 10. So that's kind of the whole point. Stop them pinning your bench, get this whole thing online. Palkia and Teleon, same thing. Except for it doesn't rely on the Crabominable at all. It just assumes that it can use the subspace or the Star Portal to get another Palkia V, an Origin Form Palkia V Star online. Mew Genesect, Crabominable, Palkia and Teleon. Yep. These are all pretty much the same. These are all supposed to be able to hit very, very quickly. If you can attack, let's see, Subspace Swell, 6 damage plus 20 for each bench Pokemon, yours and your opponent's. Minimum, your opponent has 3 bench Pokemon, and you've got 5. That's 160 damage plus 60, 220. That's enough to knock out every Pokemon V in existence by turn 2, if you move first. And so all of this is just Empoleon. This is an interesting tech. It's in the active spot. The basic Pokemon have no abilities, which completely turns off Genesect. But there's just one copy of it. Interesting idea. Arceus and Teleon. It's Arceus and Teleon. Arceus Aggron. Same thing. Same thing as the others. Use Trinity Nova to attach as many energies as you can, and then have a giant Aggron that has 330 health and does 270, and pretty straightforward. Be able to attack as fast as possible by turn 2 for a ton of damage. That's the main meta. Was the meta in base set? Is the meta now? Now the question is, how do we do that? Actually, this is probably the most interesting deck of all of them. This depends, hit hard, hit fast. This depends upon your opponent taking prize cards. You need your opponent to take at least 3 prize cards before this deck kind of turns online, and by that time you can hit their 2 prizes very quickly, very consistently, and take 6 prize cards by the time they can finish off taking 3. I highly recommend watching this game. Actually, this was a good one. But anyways, back in base set, the idea was to accelerate and attack as fast as possible. Mostly for weakness. For example, this Electabuzz does 10 damage. If he had this in the front spot, it would do weakness to Squirtle, doing 20 damage, plus power would make it do 40 damage. So the idea was to attack, knock out as fast as possible. Accelerate energy. Since these only use 1 attack, or 1 energy for a lot of their attacks, the Electabuzz, 1 attack, or 1 energy. the idea is just to attack and accelerate. Same thing here. Almost all of these attackers, well, actually not almost, all of these attackers can attack with 2 energies or less. And yeah, 2 energies or less, this is running 2 double turbo energies. Doesn't matter if it does 20 less damage, the extra energy matters. And so just with that, you're allowed to accelerate very quickly, attack very quickly, and hopefully turn your opponent's deck off. Now, looking at Worlds as a single time event isn't the way this should work. Tournaments are all the time, and what someone has played in Milwaukee changes what we played at Worlds. Like, if we look at Milwaukee, Eugenisect, Arceus Inteleon, Palkia Inteleon, this was the most recent event that allowed people to experiment and see what works. But if we go back just a couple months, August is the 8th month, let's go back 3 months to Vancouver's regional. And we're seeing Arceus Corviknight, Eugenisect, Urshifu Inteleon, and yeah, Palkia wasn't out then, but we can see how metas sort of change, and when the new set comes out, Lost Origin, there's going to be another meta shift. New cards going to be available. New decks are going to be better. Old decks aren't going to be as good. It really depends upon, when we look at the new cards, what gets good and how things change. Now, that being said, final point for meta. Knowing what cards exist is everything. And this site, pkmncards.com, is one of the best. This site is an advanced search engine for all of the Pokemon cards. I can type the name of the Pokemon card just up top for whatever I want. If I just typed in Charizard, I can see every Charizard ever printed. Apparently there are 83. And if we go to the advanced search, I want to search card name Charizard, and then just scroll down, I could just see which ones are in these regulation marks, or even better, what's just in the standard right now in Dion's. And these are all the Charizards that are standard legal. There are 17 of them. And yes, some of them are the same card. And so, but there are 17 individual unique prints of Charizard. We can use this to find out even what's in particular sets. Let's reset this and see what is in particular sets. What was in Pokemon Go. Whenever Lost Origin releases, we can use this to just see whatever we need. Finding something that deals a little more damage. Any trainer card that allows me to modify the amount of damage that I deal with things. All these say more damage, but let's filter that. More damage as a trainer card, as an energy card, as a stadium card. No Pokemon cards. Hit search. There are none of them in Pokemon Go in this set that do that. So if I remove that, here's all of them in general. All of them ever printed. There's 104 apparently. But this is how we can find certain cards that do certain things. This is a wonderful search engine because not only does it tell us what set it comes from, it also tells us how much it costs. 6 cents apparently. The high cost is always kind of skewed. Choice Belt, $17. And we can use this really, really effectively to help us build decks and kind of see what the meta is. If I just looked up all the cards that are standard legal right now, not in Pokemon Go, all the standard cards, and we're going to sort these by rarity. That doesn't make sense. Oh, rarity. The promo card's going first. I see. So, if we look at all the cards that are in standard right now, we can see how much damage these things do. We can kind of see how much HP these things have. We can sort these by HP and see what the biggest Pokemon right now in standard even is. And we can use this to help us gain some information on the game. Now, if we utilize all this information, and let's say we know that Palkia is a massive, massive threat, then we can start seeing what Palkia is weak to lightning. So let's see all the standard legal lightning Pokemon in standard right now. It's a good first thought. Start sorting these things by damage. What can deal what can deal over 140 damage, just so we can knock out Palkia for weakness? Nothing right now that's catching the eye. Except for, what's this? The Flying Pikachu VMAX. We start having, this is why this card gets teched in. This is why so many of these decks from the World Championships ran copies of Flying Pikachu. Because someone did this search and thought, how do I deal with the main problem in standard right now, which was the Palkia? They found that card. And there's a number of very good things about it. The free retreat cost, like we talked about before. The resistance to fighting is not bad. And this is how the meta works. Every time a new set comes out, we kind of think about what is working, what is not. And now that is the meta for large tournaments. Meta at League kind of changes entirely. If I've got a guy at my league who is playing Dialga V-Star, I've got to figure out a way to make it not worth it, so that he can, when he gets to Star Kronos' Metal Blast, he's not able to take as many prize cards. He can't just win the game in Snowball. So first off, I've got to figure out what can survive. Second off, what can I hit for weakness and damage? The meta changes depending on where we are. If someone is playing one of these World Championships Arceus Flying Pikachu decks, or one of these World Championships Palkia and Teleon decks, and I know this at my league, and this is the only deck they have, okay, then I kind of go back to this search and I build a Regieleki deck. I just build a deck that focuses on just getting electric Pokemon out. I mean, hell, when I think about it, just a Kecleon deck with Flaffy would do very, very well against this type of thing. Because at best, they're taking one prize card each turn, and then I can knock them out very, very easily. And then they would have to make their deck counter mine. Pokemon is a game like rock, paper, scissors, where just things counter each other. Or rather, more accurately, rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock. So I drew up this little chart just to kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about. Pokemon is like rock, paper, scissors, or more accurately, rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock. All of these types, and all of the weaknesses are next to them. Dragon has no weakness, fairy type doesn't exist anymore. All these that have a green border around them are because flying type Pokemon are weak to electricity. So if there's a dark flying type, it's going to be weak to electric, fire flying type, electric, etc., etc. Oh, this should also have a green. thing to it. Anyways. So these charts start to change the Pokemon that become more viable. Because Dark-type Pokemon are seeing sort of an uprising, Grass-type Pokemon are going to start getting more useful. Grass-type Pokemon start being more useful. The Fire-type is the only other thing that kind of counters them. And this triangle is how meta works. But it's not quite a triangle. Most of these things have more than one weakness. The exceptions being Fire, Grass, and Colorless. I guess Metal. But I guess also Electricity. Alright, so hypothetically, let's say, well, not hypothetically, Water Pokemon, problem. It's weak to Electric. Electric is weak to Fighting. So if they start playing a lot of Electric Pokemon, then the Fighting Pokemon are going to take over. This is only for in terms of weakness and resistance. This is the most basic way you can think about how the meta kind of works. If you start thinking about the hit points of the things they're using, you can start thinking start doing some math and thinking, how much damage do I need to do to knock out the things that they're playing? If you're only playing some basic Pokemon, basic non-rule box Pokemon that have under 100 hit points, then they don't need to hit for that much. Case in point, that Flaffy that I mentioned before. If I did decide to play Kecleon Flaffy, they have 90 hit points, something that is kind of important to think about. And almost all of those Palkia decks are running Radiant Greninja. Radiant Greninja can hit 90 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon by discarding 2 energies. And the Palkia has a way to accelerate some energies onto this thing. You can power this thing up immediately. And so the advantage is kind of gone because they teched in something like this. And that's Concealed Card is not the only good thing about this. Moonlight Shuriken is very, very good as well. And so, when we think about hit points and how much damage we can do, and with what's available and with weakness, then we can start making some effective decks. Case in point, once base set turned into jungle, or base and jungle, the meta shifted. Certain things changed. They got available to some bigger Pokemon with some very interesting attacks like Metronome. Haymaker didn't change all that much, just added the kind of a stronger Pokemon as well to counter itself in the mirror match. But that's pretty much how this goes. You build your deck based on what you think you're going to be playing against, and try and think of all the different outs in which you can play. I can't recommend this enough. This blog, but also pkmncards.com, really, really useful. Helps us see what's available. Helps us see what I can, what counters things, and kind of helps give me some ideas. It's a great search engine. I recommend anyone who watches this to use it if they don't. So anyways, I guess I've rambled on for long enough. Y'all have a good day, have some good games, and see you next time.